Hi guys, how are you doing today? Another episode of Blades and Boom, focusing on the blades again, of course. Today we're going to be reviewing a Ganzo. Now this is something that I normally wouldn't have even thought to pick up because of its price range. I thought it was probably just another piece of junk. But I heard so many good things I had to go ahead and try it. So this is the Ganzo G704. Let's see here right there. The black folding knife. Now, let's go ahead and get its usage and specs right out of the way right off the bat, because otherwise I tend to get all jumbled up. And so let's try it this way this time. So its philosophy of use for this one is an EDC. This is going to be a heavier EDC, weighing in at 5.2 ounces. So kind of heavy. If you're a person that really likes a lightweight knife, then maybe this is not for you. Now, this was made by Ganzo, of course, as seen by their logo, but it's copying the Benchmade HK 14205 design, which, as far as I'm aware, is discontinued now. I don't have anything against copying designs, though I wish that they would come out with their own. But this is a good design, so I'm not going to complain, and I'm going to go ahead and review this knife just as far as its construction quality in the knife itself. The blade shape is a 3.35 inch drop point with a swedge on it. It's made of stainless steel liners with G10 scales on it. The lockup is a Benchmade style axis lock, of course, as you can see, and would expect of a copy of the Benchmade HK 14205. And the clip design is kind of that Benchmade split arrow clip design. This one's painted, but they were pretty much copying it right off the bat. So let's go ahead and get into my views of this knife. As far as ergonomics go, love the ergonomics. It was designed by a good company as far as the original design was, so nothing that surprised me there. Love that finger choil there. Let's see if I can get that word right this time. The choil. Finger choil there. And I love that they, this isn't handle related, but they left that space for when you're sharpening. It makes things a lot easier. Now, I will say I have not sharpened this out of the box. I did strop it a little bit, but other than that, it's got the same factory edge on it. It's a good edge, but it is not an amazing edge. When I pulled it out of the box, it would cut paper, but it's not something that is the most easy to do. You have to be kind of slow with it. Now, after stropping it, it's not so bad, but the factory edge itself was nothing to write home about. The durability of this knife seems astounding, especially for this price range and a Chinese copy. It feels really good in the hand. That weight to it gives it just like a really quality, hefty feel, despite its price range. The blade material is 440C, so it's not a bad blade material at all, especially for a Chinese knife, if that is 440C, though I have heard more experienced knife people say that it actually isn't that 440C that they say. It's the Chinese equivalent. Either way, it performs like 440C, and it's very close if it isn't 440C, so don't let that deter you from this knife. Now, this knife, when I got it out of the box, I felt like the axis lock that it used was just a little bit too strong on the springs. It is a heavy blade. Let's see. Grab my calipers here. The blade is 3 3/4 millimeter. Oh, we're off a little bit. Let's try that again. So almost 4 millimeters in thickness. So it is a hefty blade, and I think that is why they put as strong of retention springs, or the axis lock springs, in here. But it was just a little bit too much for me. As far as I could tell, pulling it down really took 2 fingers to do for me, and it was uncomfortable, and I used 1 finger. It kind of grabbed into my thumb too much, or my finger, the side of my finger, when I was working it. So I actually, when I took this knife apart to kind of inspect it, look at the fit and finish a little bit more, I actually removed the spring on one side, which is extremely easy to do, by the way, and I can show you how if people want to know. But I removed one of the springs, which made this knife absolutely perfect as far as that retention and axis lock is concerned. I don't have any real concern of it coming out, but it is a little bit more spongy when you're flicking it out. So you have a little bit less holding that blade in the closed position. As far as heavy or everyday use goes, I don't see any reason why it should flop out on you even with that. Both deployment, as far as using the thumb stud or using the axis lock itself, is flawless. You can use, you've got kind of that softer detent due to the axis lock, as opposed to something like the ball bearing detents in other knives. So overall, I've got to say this knife runs around the $15 mark, under the $20 mark for sure. I got this one for, I believe, $16 off of Amazon, and it arrived extremely quickly with that Amazon Prime. I would certainly buy this knife again. I trust it. I have heard people say that that axis lock down in there doesn't engage the blade as much as they would like. Oh, look how dirty that is. Doesn't engage the tang of the blade as much as they would like. I believe it looks as though the tang is at a slant, just like you would expect of a Benchmade one. So that being said, you could probably modify it and just take off a slight bit of girth back there, and it would engage further if that's something you're worried about. But as far as that lockup goes, I don't see it failing anytime soon. I certainly trust it. It's the amount of pressure that anyone's ever going to put on the back of a knife in regular circumstances is minimal. Even if you're stabbing down, you're really not putting any weight or any pressure on that back. And so, as far as I'm concerned, if I can push on it and it's secure, then it works for me. Now, some people are going to say, well, it's cheap Chinese knife, so what about the blade movement? It does have a little blade weight play, but it doesn't have any up and down blade play. So there's a tiny bit of side to side, and you can actually get rid of that if you just tighten up these pivot screws a little bit. I like mine a little bit looser because it makes things just that much faster to deploy. And it is fast to deploy because of that heavy blade. So I would rather have just a tiny bit of blade play, which, let's see if I can get it. It's minimal. There's not that much at all. I would rather have that little bit of blade play and be able to open and close it that much easier than not. Now, I would suspect if, or as the knife breaks in, that will be able to get tightened up a little bit more, and some of that blade will go away. If that is something that bothers you, again, this is a $15 to $20 knife. Go out, purchase a pair of the phosphorus bronze washers, and I'm sure that with a pair of those in there instead of the Teflon ones that they use, I'm sure that you could get rid of that play. Just a little bit of work and you've got a knife that performs like a $100 knife when you're paying $20 for it. So can't complain there. Another thing that I've been seeing people do is putting a notch in this top of the blade to kind of get that Emerson wave design, where as you pull it out of your pants, it catches and snaps that blade open for you. I don't see a lot of need in it myself. I might go ahead and try and do it later just for fun, because it's a $20 knife. If it gets ruined, it's not a big deal. But just something to think about. If you want to do that, if you like this knife, then it's a fun option to do. Now, the clip, as I mentioned earlier, it is kind of a copy of that Benchmade split arrow design. I have found it extremely comfortable in the pocket. It rides not quite as low as I would normally like, but that being said, it is a larger knife. There's a little bit of wiggle because I just didn't tighten those up all the way. That's my fault. But as far as it staying in your pocket, it rides real nice in the pocket. Even with that extra weight, it's easy to forget about this knife. There's some people that are just going to hate it. It is a wide knife. Let's get an exact measurement on that width. So it's 13.5 millimeters in its width direction. So it is a wider knife, but as far as it sitting in the corner of your pocket, I forget about it all the time. In fact, I've been meaning to do this review for a while, but I keep forgetting I have this knife to review because I've been carrying it, and it's just always on my pocket. So I'll go pick out a different knife to review. So I thought about it today, and I was like, oh gosh, we better go ahead and review that because I love that knife. It's worth every penny. At $15 to $20, you cannot beat this knife. It is one of those knives, if you beat it up, if you do ruin it, you're not going to cry about it. Blade centering's not too bad, especially for this quality of knife. You know, we're talking $15, $20 knife. There's guys out there that could probably get it better. Like I said, I have a little bit of blade play in mind because the way I have it tightened. If I got rid of that, it would probably be a little bit better than it is right now. But that being said, it's not rubbing the liners or anything, so I don't see it as anything to worry about. Let's go ahead and take this apart real quick, and since I mentioned it, I will show you where those springs are and how to take that out. Alright, so we've got all the screws out. I just did the front side, that way I don't have to worry about the pocket clip and such, but we'll go ahead and pull this off. And this is actually the side that I took the spring off of. Now on this one I did polish up some of this just because I was playing around. I was trying to smooth anything out I could. So I took a little bit of steel wool to this area and oiled it, since the access lock does ride in that channel. Now when you pull this off originally, you're going to have this spring here that sits right like this. That is your return spring for it. You have this channel in the scale itself that holds everything in, so it can't fall out. Now taking that out is easy. You've got these screws out already. That was the hard part. So all you have to do is pull this side right here up, and it's going to snap right on out of that hole, and then simply push it down and it slides right off that knob. And that's it. Then you put your scale back on and you're to half the original amount of tension on it. If you're concerned about that, you can always give it a try and put it back. It's not a hard thing to put back. Now something that I did forget to mention, and is kind of nice on this scale, the pocket clip area, since it is only screwed in, or it is screwed in past the scale, but they also went ahead and put brass fittings in there, and they did sand that down, so they're completely flush with the G10. Something that you wouldn't really expect of a knife in this price range. So just another little note, not that it would affect performance in any way really, as far as whether they sanded that down or not, but nice that they went ahead and took the time to do that despite its price range. Alright, I know every time I take apart a knife, there's always guys that are like, oh, why would you do that? Don't take apart your knives. Oh, now you can see my blade centering's perfect. So just doing that, fix my blade centering. But in any case, guys, that has been the Ganzo G704. Thanks so much for watching. If you like my reviews and want to see more, make sure to subscribe to my channel. I would love if you guys did that. And if you have any suggestions, or even whether it be on the way I make my videos, or things to talk about, or even just knives that you want to see, or different equipment, please tell me in the comments below and I'll try and check those out for you guys. So thanks so much for stopping by, guys. Have a great one.